Before we begin, tell us in the comments, what city are you watching from today? This is not just a love story, it's a story about choices, redemption, heartbreak, and healing. A story that shows how sometimes the past finds its way back and changes everything. Enjoy this emotional journey brought to you by Moments of the Heart. Logan Carter was a name that echoed across boardrooms and news headlines alike. At just 35 years old, he was the CEO of Carter Biosolutions, a rapidly growing biotech firm specializing in next-generation medical diagnostics. Visionary, focused, unstoppable. The press called him the healer of Wall Street because everything he touched turned to gold, including the human lives his technology helped save. But on a brisk October morning in downtown Chicago, amidst the chaos of traffic and the buzz of ambition, Logan stopped cold on the sidewalk in front of his flagship research facility. He had stepped outside to take a call. His assistant had just reminded him of an 11 a.m. pitch with European investors, but all of that disappeared when he caught sight of a woman sitting just outside the building's glass entrance, wrapped in a tattered fleece blanket, a toddler pressed to her chest. She was slouched near the wall as if trying to vanish into the background. Her hair was unkempt, her clothes layered and mismatched. Her face was thinner now, hardened by time. But he knew those eyes, those grey-green eyes that once looked at him under the bleachers, that once lit up when he showed her the stars through his childhood telescope. Grace? The name slipped from his mouth in a whisper, raw and unfiltered. The woman's body jolted. She slowly looked up. Her expression changed from confusion to shock. "Logan," she whispered. Her voice cracked like something long frozen, finally thawing. He blinked several times, taking a step forward without realizing it. "Is that really you?" Her bottom lip trembled, and for a few long seconds nothing else existed, just two people standing on opposite sides of time. In her arms the child stirred and whimpered. Without hesitation, Logan shrugged off his $1,000 coat and placed it over her shoulders. "You're freezing." "My God, Grace, what happened to you?" "It's a long story," she said softly, her eyes darting around as passers-by began to slow down, their gazes shifting from the homeless woman to the man kneeling in front of her. To them, Logan Carter was untouchable. Now he was on the sidewalk, comforting someone who looked like she hadn't had a roof over her head in weeks. "I can't believe it's you," he said. "Come with me." She instinctively pulled her daughter closer. "I don't know if I can." "You can," he said with firm gentleness. "Please, Grace, let me help you." Grace hesitated. Her grip on the child tightened as if the cold concrete beneath her feet felt safer than the unknown comfort being offered. But Logan's eyes held no judgment, just a quiet storm of disbelief, compassion, and something deeper. The little girl, no more than 2, peeked up from beneath the blanket. Her golden curls clung to her face and her big hazel eyes scanned Logan with cautious curiosity. "What's her name?" Logan asked gently, his gaze shifting to the child. "Lily?" Grace answered, her voice barely above a whisper. "She's my daughter." Logan nodded, then stood slowly, offering his hand. "Let me take care of you, just for today." Grace stared at his outstretched hand as if it were a bridge to a life she no longer believed she deserved. After a long pause, she reached out, and the moment their hands touched, Logan's chest tightened. It had been nearly 2 decades since he had felt her skin. Carefully he helped her up. The child whimpered from the sudden motion, but Grace calmed her with a soft hum. As they walked toward the revolving glass doors of the building, heads turned. Executives in suits, assistants with clipboards, tech engineers with laptops, all froze, trying to make sense of the surreal image unfolding before them. Logan Carter, in pressed slacks and a navy wool sweater, escorting a homeless woman and her toddler through the lobby of one of the most prestigious biotech headquarters in the city. "Mr. Carter," a receptionist began. "Private room." "Now," he interrupted without breaking stride. "And call Emma. Ask her to bring a kid's meal and clean clothes. Warm ones." The receptionist nodded silently. They entered a quiet, window-lined conference suite. Logan dimmed the lights slightly and set the thermostat higher. Grace sat down slowly on a plush leather couch, cradling Lily against her chest. The little girl buried her face in her mother's neck. "You can relax," Logan said. "No one's going to hurt you here." She gave a faint nod, brushing strands of hair from her daughter's forehead. For a while, silence sat between them like a third person in the room. Logan didn't rush her. He just sat in the chair across from her, hands folded. Finally, Grace spoke. "I'm sorry for everything." He leaned forward. "Why did you leave?" Her lips trembled. "Because I found out I was pregnant, and I knew if I told you, you'd give everything up. You had a full scholarship. You were going to change the world. I didn't want to be the reason you didn't." Logan's breath caught. "You were pregnant?" Grace nodded. "I had a boy. His name was Noah. I couldn't support him. I had no family, no job. I gave him up for adoption when he was born." Logan leaned back slowly, his heart hammering. He didn't speak. He couldn't. Grace's eyes filled with tears. "I've hated myself every day since." "And Lily?" he asked, his voice raw. "She's from a later chapter. I married someone. It was bad. He passed away 2 years ago. And after that, it all fell apart. I tried to keep things together, but eventually we ended up on the streets." A soft knock interrupted them. Logan stood and opened the door. Emma, his operations chief, stood there holding a tray of food and a small bag of clothes. "Everything you asked for," she said, her eyes flicking to Grace but offering no comment. "Thank you," Logan replied quietly. Emma left and he brought the tray to Grace. The scent of warm soup, grilled cheese and apple slices stirred Lily awake. Her tiny hands reached for the plate, and she began nibbling at the food with urgency. Logan watched them both in silence. He'd spent years climbing every mountain, chasing every benchmark, building a life of power and polish. And here, right in front of him, sat the girl who once taught him how to dream bigger than the stars. She was tired, broken, fragile, but she was still Grace. And somewhere out there, their son existed. Later that evening, Logan stood by the panoramic windows of his penthouse, the city stretching beneath him like a neon constellation. But his mind wasn't on quarterly projections or clinical trials. It was on a girl with tear-streaked cheeks holding a child who might have been his. Grace Bennett. The name used to be everything to him. His first kiss, his first heartbreak, his first real love. He thought she'd left him to chase something else. He thought maybe he wasn't enough. But the truth was more devastating than any theory he had imagined. She'd left because she believed he deserved a future unburdened by a family at 16. A choice that broke both their hearts. And now, 2 decades later, she'd come back, battered by life, but still fighting. He picked up the phone and called Derek Walsh, his longtime friend and legal advisor. "Derek, I need you to handle a few things discreetly." "What's going on?" "Her name is Grace Bennett. I want a full support package arranged. Childcare, housing, a bridge employment contract. Title her Assistant Director of Community Programs at the Tribeca branch. It's not charity, she's qualified." Derek hesitated. "Wait, Grace Bennett from high school?" "Yeah." "The girl you used to sneak out with to stargaze from the observatory tower?" "The same." "Logan, are you sure this is smart? You've got investors, a board. You just launched a new public health division." "I'm not asking for permission," Logan said firmly. "Just make it happen." The next morning, Grace woke up wrapped in a duvet softer than anything she'd touched in years. Lily was nestled beside her, still holding the plush bunny the hotel staff had quietly placed on the bed the night before. For a moment, Grace forgot where she was. The warmth, the silence, the scent of fresh linens. It didn't feel real. Then it all came rushing back. Logan, the food, the conversation, the promise to help. She sat up slowly, careful not to wake Lily. There was a note on the side table. "Take your time today. Clothes are in the closet. Car will pick you up at 10:30. L. She almost cried reading it. After a quick shower, the first in days, Grace opened the wardrobe and found a tailored navy blazer, slacks, a silk blouse and low heels. Everything fit perfectly. She dressed Lily in the little floral dress left for her and packed their few belongings into a tote bag. At 10:32, a black SUV arrived. A smiling female driver greeted her by name and held the door. At the Tribeca campus of Carter Biosolutions, Grace stepped into a different world. The lobby was sleek and modern, filled with natural light and the scent of eucalyptus. She held Lily's hand tightly as a woman with cropped red hair and a clipboard approached. "You must be Grace. I'm Nadia, the campus director. Mr. Carter asked me to give you the full tour." Grace blinked. "He arranged all this." Nadia smiled. "Every last detail?" She leaned closer. "He never does this. Ever." Throughout the day, Grace shadowed the outreach team and learned about Carter Biosolutions' new initiative: community health access, mobile diagnostics, support for underserved populations. It was meaningful work and something she felt strangely drawn to. By late afternoon, Lily had already made friends at the on-site daycare and was painting butterflies in the corner. Grace stood in the staff lounge quietly sipping coffee when she heard a familiar voice. "How was your first day?" She turned. Logan stood in the doorway, hands in his pockets. She managed a tired smile. "Overwhelming, but good." He nodded. "We're opening 10 more clinics next year. I'd like you to be part of that." Grace hesitated. "Why are you doing all this?" He stepped closer. "Because once, when no one believed in me, you did. You told me I could change the world. Maybe now it's my turn to help you rebuild yours." She looked away, swallowing a knot in her throat. "I'm not who I used to be, Logan." "No," he said softly. "You're stronger now." That night, Grace tucked Lily into bed in the small but cozy apartment that Logan had arranged for them temporarily. It wasn't a palace, but to Grace, it felt like sanctuary. Warm blankets, hot water, a refrigerator that hummed softly in the corner. Safety. After Lily drifted into sleep, Grace tiptoed to the tiny balcony and stared out at the city lights. Her mind raced. Her chest was tight with fear, not from the cold or the newness of it all, but from the weight of something else. Guilt. For years she had buried Noah in her heart, never knowing what happened to him, never imagining she would ever see Logan again, let alone be offered a second chance. But now, things were changing faster than she could process. Behind her, the door creaked open. Logan stepped out, holding 2 cups of tea. "You always liked chamomile," he said quietly, offering one to her. Grace took it with a soft smile. "You remembered." "I remember a lot more than I thought I would." They stood in silence for a few beats, sipping tea beneath the stars they'd used to name as teenagers. "I need to tell you something," she finally said, her voice tight. "I figured," Logan replied. "Is it about him? Noah?" Grace nodded. "I don't know where he is. I don't even know if he'd want to meet me. But not a day's gone by that I haven't thought about him. I signed the papers in a hospital room with rain on the window and a nurse who couldn't look me in the eyes. He was so small, Logan, so perfect. And I was so empty." He said nothing, just stood beside her, his jaw clenched, staring into the skyline. "I want to find him," he said at last. "If you'll let me." Grace looked at him, her breath caught. "Why?" "Because he's my son, too." She closed her eyes and nodded slowly. "Okay." The next morning, Logan made 2 phone calls, one to a private investigator and one to his legal team. Discreet inquiries, sealed adoption records, cross-referencing dates, locations, and any possible leads. By the end of the day, the wheels were turning. Meanwhile, at Carter Biosolutions headquarters, the buzz of something new began to ripple through the executive offices. Rumours. Derek Walsh had caught wind of Grace's return, and he didn't like it one bit. He sat at his desk, staring at a framed photo of him and Logan from college. Back when the world was simpler, back when loyalty meant something. He clenched his jaw. Grace had left Logan once. She'd broken him. And now she was back, living in a company-paid apartment, working at a branch office, reappearing like some ghost from the past. Derek picked up his phone and dialed a number he hadn't called in years. "I need information," he said flatly. "About Grace Bennett." A woman's voice responded on the other end. "You're finally calling in that favor. Start with hospital records from about 7 years ago. Find out what happened to the child she gave up. And what are you planning to do with that info? Protect someone who's too blind to protect himself." That evening, Grace came home to find Lily sitting on the floor drawing colourful stick figures, a little girl holding hands with a tall man and woman. "Is that us?" Grace asked, kneeling beside her. "That's me, you and Mr. Logan," Lily said, matter-of-factly. Grace stared at the picture for a long moment. "What do you think of Mr. Logan?" "He's nice. He smells like coffee and sunshine." Grace laughed quietly and kissed her daughter's head. Behind them, the door opened. Logan stepped in with a small stuffed bear in one hand and a soft smile on his face. Lily ran to him immediately. "Logan, look what I drew." As Logan knelt to examine her artwork, Grace watched them. Her heart swelled and ached all at once. She was falling. Again. And it terrified her. 2 days later, Logan sat in his downtown office staring at his laptop screen. The blinds were drawn, and the morning sun barely filtered in through the edges. On the screen, a secure email had just arrived from the private investigation team. He clicked it open, breath hitching. A child named Noah Bennett, born in Chicago 7 years ago, was adopted by a couple named Brian and Claire Dawson. Current residents, Stamford, Connecticut. No biological children of their own. Adoption was finalized 6 weeks after birth. Background check suggests stable home. The boy's healthy, enrolled in public school, and described by neighbors as bright, kind, and curious. Logan read the email 3 times before leaning back in his chair, stunned. His son. Alive. Well, safe. For all the pain that came with that knowledge, there was also peace. He picked up his phone and dialed Grace immediately. Grace was at work, organizing volunteer schedules for an upcoming community health fair when the phone buzzed. She stepped out into the hallway and answered. "Logan, they found him." She froze. Her hands went cold. "Are you sure?" "There's a boy, Noah, living with a couple named Dawson in Connecticut. Everything checks out. He's okay, Grace. He's okay." She leaned against the wall, heart pounding. "Oh my God." "I'll only take this further if you're ready," Logan added softly. "We don't have to reach out unless you want to." She didn't answer right away. Then came the whisper. "I want to see him." Across town, Derek Walsh sat in a sleek black sedan with tinted windows, parked across from a modest house in the suburbs. He watched as a boy with chestnut hair and a red backpack bounded up the front steps, laughing with a woman, his adoptive mother, Claire. A soft knock on his window startled him. It was the informant. "That's the one," the man said. "Noah Dawson, real name, Noah Bennett." Derek nodded. "You going to tell the mother?" "No," Derek said quietly. "I'm going to tell the board." Later that night, Grace stood on the balcony again, Logan beside her. "What happens if he doesn't want to see me?" she asked. "Then we accept it, and we give him space, but he deserves the truth. You both do." She turned to him. "How are you not angry with me?" "I was," he admitted, "for a long time. But now, I'm just grateful I found you again, and that I get to help you through this." She leaned her head against his shoulder. Below them, the city moved as if nothing had changed, but everything had. A week later, under a gentle spring sun, Logan and Grace stood nervously in front of a charming blue house with a white porch in Stamford, Connecticut. The garden was tidy, dotted with yellow daffodils. Wind chimes tinkled softly in the breeze. It was a home full of love. You could feel it. Grace's fingers were clenched tightly around her purse strap. Logan reached over and gently held her hand. "You don't have to say anything today," he reminded her. "Just breathe. Be here." The door opened. Claire Dawson greeted them with a calm smile. She looked to be in her late 30s, with kind eyes and an open maternal warmth. "Thank you for coming," she said. "Brian and Noah are out back. He's excited. We told him 2 special visitors were coming." Grace swallowed hard. "He doesn't know." Claire shook her head gently. "Not yet. We wanted to give you the chance to see him first, get a feel." As they walked through the house, cozy, filled with books, crafts, and framed family photos, Grace caught sight of one picture on a side table. A little boy with bright hazel eyes, holding a trophy, smiling wide. Her knees almost gave out. Logan steadied her. In the backyard, Brian Dawson was helping Noah build a rocket launcher out of cardboard and tape. The boy was laughing, animated, focused, 7 years old, healthy, beautiful. He had Logan's chin and Grace's eyes. "Hi," Logan said softly, stepping forward. Noah looked up and tilted his head slightly. "Are you the visitors?" Grace nodded, too overwhelmed to speak. Brian came forward. "Noah, this is Mr. Logan and Miss Grace. They're old friends of ours. They came to meet you." "Cool," the boy said. "Want to see my rocket?" Logan knelt down, smiling. "Absolutely." As Noah explained every detail of his invention, how the straw acted as the fuel line, how the cardboard wings helped with balance, Grace stood back, watching in silent awe. This was her son. This was the child she had held for minutes and missed for years. When Noah finally turned to her, something in his expression softened. "You look like the lady in my baby pictures." Grace blinked rapidly. "That's because I am." Noah looked puzzled. Logan stepped in gently. "Noah, sometimes life doesn't go as planned, and sometimes people who love you have to make very hard choices." The boy's eyes didn't leave Grace's. "Are you my real mom?" Grace crouched to meet his eye level. "I gave birth to you," she said carefully. "I held you in a hospital and loved you with everything I had, but I didn't have a home, or a job, or even a way to feed myself. And I believed that giving you to a family who could was the best thing I could do for you." Noah said nothing, just stared, processing. Finally, he looked up at Claire and Brian. "Are you still my parents?" Claire came forward, knelt beside him, and cupped his face. "Forever?" "Then I think I'm okay." He turned back to Grace. "Can I call you Grace for now?" Tears spilled down her cheeks. She nodded, speechless. Logan stepped forward and put a hand on the boy's shoulder. "I'm your biological dad. That means I helped make you too, but you can call me whatever you want." Noah looked thoughtful, then grinned. "Cool." They stayed for hours, played board games, drew chalk rockets on the patio. Lily, who came along with Logan and Grace, clicked instantly with Noah, chattering away like they'd known each other forever. When it was time to leave, Noah walked them to the car. "Will you come back?" he asked. Grace knelt and hugged him softly. "Only if you want us to." He nodded. "I do." Then he turned to Logan. "Will you bring more rocket stuff next time?" Logan laughed. "Absolutely." As the car pulled away, Grace burst into tears. Logan took her hand in silence. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. But it was the beginning. Derek Walsh was seething. He had spent the last 15 years building Carter Biosolutions alongside Logan, from a shared dorm room idea to a multi-billion-dollar company. While Logan was the face, the visionary, Derek was the fixer, the strategist, the one who cleaned the messes. And now Grace Bennett, the girl who had left Logan shattered all those years ago, had returned. And worse, she was back in Logan's life, his home, his heart. Derek had tried to be civil, had tried to ignore her presence in board meetings, her name in HR reports, her daughter in the company daycare. But the trip to Connecticut had been the final straw. He'd hacked into Logan's calendar and seen the meeting notes marked Dawson family visit, and that was all he needed. Now, he was prepared to act. At the next quarterly board meeting, Derek arrived early. He printed an anonymous dossier and slipped copies under each executive's portfolio. Inside were photos of Grace from 7 years ago, living in shelters, pushing a stroller with a bruised face. There were also clips taken recently from company security footage. Her walking in and out of the Tribeca office, holding hands with Logan. By the time Logan walked in, the air was thick with judgment. "What's going on?" he asked, sensing the shift immediately. One board member, a silver-haired investor named Marvin Cross, cleared his throat. "Logan, we've received some concerning material." "About what?" "About your new hire, Grace Bennett." Logan's eyes narrowed. "What about her? Her history, her past, and your personal involvement with her?" Logan scanned the room. "Let me be clear, Grace is not a threat to this company. She's a survivor, a mother, a brilliant mind who understands the people we're trying to help." Another executive leaned forward. "But to the public, it looks like you're compromising the brand. You're housing her, you're raising her child, you're connected to her biologically and emotionally." Logan's voice dropped an octave. "You're right, I am." A beat of silence. "And I won't apologize for it." Derek smirked subtly from his chair. Logan continued. "Our mission has always been to use innovation to restore dignity and health to those society forgot. Are we hypocrites now because we're uncomfortable that the person in need was someone I loved?" Cross tapped the folder. "It's not that simple." "It is to me," Logan said. "I'm not asking you to like her. I'm asking you to trust me." Later that night, Logan sat in his office, the lights off, his jaw tight. He knew it was Derek. Only someone that close to him could have accessed the security footage, the internal HR files. Only someone with a personal vendetta. And it wasn't just about business. It was about Grace. Across town, Grace was putting Lily to bed when her phone buzzed. An unknown number. She let it ring, then froze when a voicemail came through. She listened once, then again. The voice was male, distorted. "You think the past stays buried? You think no one remembers what you did? There's a price for silence, and someone's about to pay." Her hands shook. Her mind flashed to a name she hadn't thought about in years. Eli, her ex-husband's brother, the one who had always lingered around too long, the one who had made threats after the funeral, the one who had access to everything. She sat on the floor breathing hard. She wasn't safe. Not really. Not yet. The next morning, Logan arrived at the Tribeca office early. Too early. He couldn't sleep after the board meeting, and he certainly couldn't stop thinking about Grace, about the voicemail she'd received. When she stepped into his office hours later, pale and shaken, he knew immediately something was wrong. "I got a call," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "A threat." Logan motioned for her to sit, already pulling his phone out. "Was it a number you recognized?" "Number, but the voice." "I think it was Eli." He froze. "Eli? Your ex-brother-in-law?" She nodded. "He used to follow me. After my husband died, he tried to convince me I owed him. Money. Loyalty. He said if I ever told anyone about what really happened during the marriage, he'd make sure Lily was taken from me." Logan didn't hesitate. "We're calling the police." "No." Grace stood. "He doesn't leave trails. He knows how to hide." "Then I'll hire someone who knows how to find him." Her eyes widened. "Logan, you're not alone in this anymore, and you're not going to live in fear. Not while I can do something about it." That night, Logan met privately with an elite security consultant, a former FBI agent, discreet, ruthless, efficient. Within 24 hours, they had traced the number. Burner phone, last pinged near a bus station outside the city, connected to a known alias Eli had used before. They were close, too close for comfort. Meanwhile, at the Carter Biosolutions HQ, Derek Walsh sat in his glass-walled office watching the rain streak across the skyline. He had expected Logan to cave, to quietly demote Grace, to return to the safe version of himself. But Logan had done the opposite. He doubled down, defended her, declared himself. And worse, the board was backing him. Because the public? They didn't recoil from Grace's story. They embraced it. Social media exploded with hashtags. Second chances, real people, real impact. Grace and Logan. She had become the symbol of the company's mission, and Logan had become more admired than ever, not for perfection, but for his vulnerability. Derek felt something he hadn't let himself feel in years: irrelevance. The next day, Logan called a press conference. Standing before a wall of cameras and journalists, he addressed the rumours head-on. "Yes," he said, "Grace Bennett was once homeless. Yes, she's the mother of my biological son. And yes, she's now part of this company, not because of her past, but because of who she is. A woman who never stopped fighting, who raised a daughter on sidewalks and shelters, and still managed to smile." The crowd fell silent. "I'm proud to stand beside her, and I'm proud that she's standing beside me." He stepped off the stage to thunderous applause. That night, Grace walked into the apartment with tears in her eyes and Lily at her side. Logan greeted them with dinner on the table, lights dimmed, music playing softly. She looked at him across the kitchen and whispered, "Thank you." "For what?" "For giving me back my life." He reached for her hand. "It was always yours, Grace. You just forgot how to claim it." The days that followed the press conference felt different. For the first time in years, Grace didn't feel like she had to hide. She walked into the Carter Biosolutions Tribeca campus with her head high. People didn't stare the way they had before. Some nodded politely, a few even smiled, and Brooke, the once skeptical operations manager, handed her a coffee one morning with a simple, "Good work yesterday." Grace blinked, then smiled. Meanwhile, Logan had shifted his focus towards something even more personal: Noah. The Dawsons had graciously opened the door for more visits. Grace and Logan took the train to Connecticut every weekend, slowly building a bond with the boy who had his mother's thoughtful eyes and his father's unshakable curiosity. Each visit brought new moments: a shared game, a bedtime story, a laugh that felt familiar. One afternoon, Noah sat beside Grace on a swing in the Dawsons' backyard. "So, you used to live in a house like this?" he asked. Grace smiled gently. "A little smaller, but yes." "And then you didn't?" She hesitated. "Then I had some hard years, made some choices, lost some things." "Like me." Tears prickled behind her eyes. "I never lost you, Noah. I just didn't get to watch you grow." He leaned against her arm. "I think I want to call you Mom now, if that's okay." Grace blinked rapidly. That would be more than okay. It was a quiet Sunday morning when Claire called. "Noah's been asking if he can spend the weekend with you, just the three of you." Logan nearly dropped the phone. They prepared everything: a room with glow-in-the-dark stars, his favourite snacks, an activity list that stretched for 2 pages. Lily was ecstatic. The weekend came like a dream. Pancake breakfasts, forts made of blankets, a science kit exploded baking soda volcanoes all over the kitchen. On Saturday night, after the kids had gone to bed, Grace and Logan sat on the balcony of the apartment. "He called me Dad today," Logan whispered. "He did it so naturally." Grace placed her hand on his. "He knows. Kids feel what's real." Logan looked at her. "I want to make this permanent. I want to marry you." Grace froze, not just because of Noah, or Lily, or the press, but because I love you. I never stopped. She blinked back tears. "Yes, but peace never lasts forever." 3 days later, a letter arrived at the Tribeca office addressed to Grace. Inside was a photograph: Lily walking home from school, and a note. "She looks a lot like her father. Too bad he didn't finish what he started." Grace dropped the photo. Her hands were shaking. Logan called security. He relocated the family to a more secure property: bodyguards, alarms, bulletproof windows. It wasn't just about them anymore. The new apartment wasn't just safer, it was a fortress. Logan had moved Grace, Lily, and temporarily even Noah, per the Dawsons' approval, into a high-rise he owned but had never lived in. Armed security watched the lobby. Cameras covered every entrance. The glass was reinforced, the staff vetted, but Grace still couldn't sleep. Every night she lay in bed with Lily curled beside her, staring at the ceiling, listening for sounds, remembering what it was like to look over her shoulder, to fear every knock. This wasn't new to her. It was just happening again. And this time she had more to lose. Logan, meanwhile, was furious. "Why didn't you tell me Eli was this dangerous?" he asked one night after a security debriefing. Grace sat at the kitchen counter cradling a mug of untouched tea. "Because he wasn't. Not at first. After my husband died, Eli helped with the funeral. Then he started showing up, calling, making comments, threatening to tell child services I was unstable. You should have told someone." "I did. No one listened." Logan reached across the table, took her hand. "I'm listening now." She squeezed it. But listening won't stop him. If he's really back, he won't stop until he gets what he wants. "What does he want?" She hesitated. "Control, revenge. I think he blames me for his brother's death." The next day, Noah returned to the Dawsons for school, but asked to visit every weekend. Lily began sleeping with the lights on again. Grace kept her keys between her fingers when she walked down the hall, a habit she thought she'd broken years ago. And Logan? Logan hired someone else, a woman named Cora, ex-CIA, discreet, cold-eyed, brilliant. "She won't make the mistake the last security team made," he told Grace. "She's going to find Eli." But while Cora tracked, another storm began to brew. Derek Walsh. It started as rumours in investor groups that Carter Biosolutions was funneling money into personal protection programs for a non-employee, that Logan Carter had compromised the company's internal ethics clause, that Grace Bennett was not only Logan's mistress, but possibly a co-owner of his next foundation project. One anonymous source had supplied internal HR documents, and Derek was feeding every fire. One night, Logan was summoned to a closed-door emergency meeting. He walked into a room of 12 board members, all looking at him like a liability. Marvin Cross spoke first. "Logan, sit." Logan sat. "This is about Grace." Logan didn't flinch. "I assumed. She's being watched, and so are you. The press is circling. Financial Times is preparing a story." "Let them," Logan said calmly. "Do you understand what's at stake here?" Another board member asked. "A single scandal could tank our stock. Our next licensing deal. We're weeks from FDA clearance on our NeuroSync trial." Logan leaned forward. "Then tell me, what kind of man builds a company to change lives, and then turns his back on the first one that really needs changing?" Silence. "She's not a mistake. She's the reason I became this man. You can strip my title, my shares, my name off the building. Hell, you can fire me, but I will not walk away from her." And then he stood. "I built this from nothing, and I'll build again if I have to." The next Friday started like any other. Grace was helping Lily choose between two sparkly headbands. Logan was preparing Noah's breakfast, oatmeal with blueberries and just a touch of honey, exactly the way he liked it. Everything felt normal. Until the doorbell rang. Cora, the security chief, answered it first. She spoke with someone at the door through the intercom, but her face tightened. "There's someone downstairs. He left this." She handed Logan a small envelope. Inside was a single photo. Grace, Logan, Noah, Lily, taken 2 days ago in the park. Logan's fingers curled into a fist. "He's watching us," Grace whispered. Cora nodded. That was a message, not a threat. He's saying, "I'm close." Logan didn't hesitate. He moved them all to a private estate outside the city, a lakeside property once meant as a retreat, now converted into a safe house. "This isn't forever," he told Grace, "just until we take control of the situation." That night, Grace stood at the edge of the lake, the wind in her hair, arms wrapped around herself. Logan approached slowly. "Do you regret coming back?" he asked softly. She turned to him. "Never." He placed his hand on her shoulder. "Then I swear to you, we'll end this." Cora moved fast. She tracked Eli to a run-down motel 2 towns over. Surveillance confirmed he was living there under a false name, paying cash, using burner phones. Within 24 hours, Cora had a warrant prepared, through private legal channels and with cooperation from local police. But Eli was 1 step ahead. By the time they arrived, the room was empty. The only thing left behind was a thumb drive, On it, photos, documents, videos, clips of Grace during her worst years, sobbing, screaming, hiding bruises, recordings from hospital cameras, case files that had been sealed, and one message: "You think I'm a monster? You made me one." Grace sat motionless in Logan's office as the footage played. She looked at the floor, at her hands, anywhere but the screen. "Turn it off," she whispered. Logan stood and pulled the plug. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice hollow. "You shouldn't have to see that." "I needed to," he replied. "Because I love all of you. Not just the bright parts, not just the victory speeches. All of it. Even the broken pieces." Grace's lip trembled. "But what if the world sees them too? Then they'll know how strong you are." That night, Logan made a decision. He gathered his legal team, his press coordinator, his PR director. "We release our own statement, on our terms, our truth." Derek, watching from afar, knew he was losing. The press conference was held in the heart of downtown Chicago, at the very headquarters of Carter Biosolutions. Journalists filled every seat. Cameramen adjusted their lenses. The live stream feed showed tens of thousands of viewers watching across the country. Logan Carter walked onto the stage wearing a dark suit, no tie, sleeves rolled up. He didn't have cue cards, no teleprompter, just truth. "Good evening," he began. "There's been a lot of speculation about my personal life, my leadership, and the presence of Grace Bennett in both." He paused. "Let's get one thing clear. I love Grace. She's not just the mother of my son. She is a survivor of abuse, of poverty, of a society that turns its back on the broken instead of helping them rebuild." He looked directly into the cameras. "She didn't ask to be the face of redemption, but she lived it, and I won't allow anyone to weaponize her pain, not against her, not against our children, and not against this company." A few audible gasps rippled through the crowd. He went on. "Grace was targeted, threatened, harassed, and through it all she stood taller than anyone I know, because she knows who she is, and I'm proud, no, honored, to stand beside her." A moment of silence, then applause, not just polite, genuine, thunderous. That evening, Grace sat curled on the couch watching the broadcast replay. Lily was asleep in her arms. Noah sat beside her, clutching her hand. When Logan came in, she stood and walked into his arms without a word. "You didn't have to do that," she whispered into his chest. "I did, because they needed to know the truth, and so did you." She looked up at him. "You've given me everything I lost." "No," he said. "You never lost it. You just needed someone to remind you how strong you are." At Carter Biosolutions' legal office, Derek slammed his laptop shut. His face was red with rage. He had tried everything. Rumors, blackmail, manipulation. But Logan had made his move first. Public support was rising. Shareholders were calling him a human CEO. Analysts praised his honesty. And Derek was being quietly investigated for breaching employee confidentiality. He'd gone too far. He knew it. But something darker stirred inside him. If he couldn't ruin Logan with lies, he might have to find something real. 2 weeks later, things began to settle. No more late-night threats. No more anonymous packages. Eli had disappeared after the press conference. Authorities were still searching, but the silence itself felt like relief. Derek had been suspended pending investigation. And for the first time since this all began, Logan and Grace sat on their back porch, watching Noah and Lily chase fireflies across the yard. "Do you think this piece is real?" Grace asked. Logan nodded. "It's real because we made it." Grace leaned her head on his shoulder. "Then let's make it permanent." He turned to her, heart skipping. "What do you mean?" She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small note folded in half. Inside were 3 simple words written in Lily's handwriting. "Say yes, Mommy." Logan laughed, eyes misting. "You're proposing?" "I'm saying, I want to do this. All of it. Marriage, chaos, the whole imperfect dream." He didn't wait for a second longer. He kissed her. They didn't want a grand affair. No press, no designer gowns, no spotlights. Just family, friends, the backyard, strings of lights, a homemade cake, and Lily as the flower girl in a crown of daisies. Noah stood beside Logan as the best man, wearing a crooked bow tie and a grin too wide for his face. Claire and Brian Dawson sat in the front row holding hands. Cora, their ever-watchful protector, stood in the back, smiling like a proud older sister. The officiant was Logan's college roommate, now a minister. He kept it short, simple, beautiful. What we celebrate today, he said, is not just love but resilience, not just romance but return, a home found after years lost. Grace looked at Logan and whispered, "This isn't a fairy tale." "No," he said, "it's better, it's real." They exchanged vows with trembling voices, then rings, then a kiss that tasted like every chapter they'd survived together. That night, under a sky full of stars, Grace danced barefoot with Lily in the grass while Logan and Noah launched paper lanterns over the lake. "Make a wish," Logan told Noah. "I already got mine," the boy replied. "I got a real family." 6 months later, Grace stood behind a podium, not in fear, but in purpose. Behind her was the newly unveiled Phoenix Center for Women, a community initiative she founded with support from Carter Bio Solutions. It was her dream born of pain, her gift to women who had once stood where she stood, invisible, unheard, forgotten. The room was filled with guests, volunteers, city leaders, donors, and the women who would soon be the first to receive housing, job training, childcare, and hope. Noah sat in the front row next to Claire and Brian, waving. Lily, beside him, held a bouquet too big for her arms. Logan stood near the side, pride radiating from every inch of him. Grace began her speech. "I used to believe survival was the best I could hope for, that if I could just make it one more night, one more block, I'd be okay. But survival's only the beginning. Healing comes next. And after that, purpose." She looked directly at the crowd. "Let me be clear. I'm not here because I'm special. I'm here because I got a second chance, and I believe every woman deserves the same." Applause erupted. Not polite, not obligatory, but real, raw, earned. That night at home, Grace sat on the porch with Logan. The kids were inside drawing pictures of the Phoenix Center for a school project. "You know," she said, resting her head on his shoulder, "for the first time, I'm not waiting for something bad to happen." He looked at her. And that feels like freedom. Noah taped a photo to the fridge, the four of them holding hands in front of the center's ribbon-cutting banner. Beneath it, he had written in crayon, "We're not just a family, we're a beginning. Thank you for following the unforgettable journey of Logan, Grace, Noah, and Lily. If this story moved you, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to Moments of the Heart. And remember, no matter how far you've fallen, love has the power to rebuild anything.